buy their wine. If restaurants and businesses start to feel these tariffs, their costs go up. They buy less American wine as well. And they're dealing with the tariffs already for things like the cost of their bottles, which are making more expensive for the wineries.
Lots of ripple effects right there. And we saw Mary talk about that poll right there. If American consumers start to register that disapproval, spend less, that could have a huge economic impact.
Yeah, and we're hearing some of this from companies like the dollar store Delta talking about consumers starting to pull back. The more consumers pull back, the bigger impact it has on the economy overall.
Okay, we'll be watching.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Rebecca. Now to President Trump and Elon Musk's drive to slash the federal workforce. Our senior political correspondent, Rachel Scott, has the latest on that story and the anger over the cuts. Good morning, Rachel.
Michael, good morning to you. And these sweeping cuts by the Trump administration and mass firings not only prompting legal pushback in the courts, but also from voters across the country, too, who are now confronting their Republican representatives at town halls. Overnight, a heated town hall in Asheville, North Carolina.
I feel like this is not productive with everybody yelling at me. I mean, if you want to hear,
Republican Congressman Chuck Edwards confronted by constituents about the sweeping cuts across the government by President Trump and Elon Musk.
How do you justify cuts to staff of the VA helping veterans, especially those with long-term care needs?
So first of all, there have been no cuts to the staff as of this.
Edwards repeatedly booed as he took questions for 90 minutes.
Like him or not, Elon Musk has brought a lot of really smart people to Doge.
One interaction turning so contentious, this man had to be escorted out.
You don't get to do this, boy!
The Trump administration is pushing forward with those cuts. Thousands of workers have already been fired across the federal workforce. In the middle of tax season, sources say the IRS is now expected to cut 18,000 jobs by May 15th. And the U.S. Postal Service announcing it will trim its workforce by 10,000 with voluntary buyouts after striking an agreement with the Department of Government Efficiency. Musk this week splitting with the White House, suggesting entitlement programs like Medicare and Social Security could be next.
The wage support in entitlement spending, which is most of the federal spending is entitlements. So that's like the big one to eliminate.
Those words leaving some voters concerned.
What are you doing to ensure the protection of our Social Security benefits?
Yeah. Good question. I'm not going to vote to dissolve your Social Security. I'm not looking to disrupt Social Security at all.
And overnight, a federal judge ordering 18 agencies to hire back 20,000 federal workers the administration fired. The judge saying the mass firings didn't follow certain rules or give advance notice, causing the impacted states irreparable harm by having to assist thousands of unemployed workers. And when it comes to the administration's argument that federal employees were fired for poor performance, the judge writes, this isn't true. There were no individualized assessments of employees. They were all just fired collectively. So hours earlier, a different federal judge issued a very similar ruling. The White House responding to that, calling it absurd, saying they will be fighting back, George.
Rachel, it looks like no government shutdown?
Yeah, it's always down to the wire, George, but it does look like Congress will avert this. Senate Democrats reversing course. They were trying to block a Republican proposal in protest of President Trump, Elon Musk, and those sweeping cuts. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says he will now vote to keep the government open, insisting that while these policies are bad, a government shutdown is worse, he says. George.
Okay, Rachel, we're going to come back to New York now. And federal immigration agents looking for a woman near Columbia University last night, days after a Palestinian activist and former graduate student was arrested, with the Trump administration trying to deport him. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katursky has the latest. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, George. Overnight, Columbia University says agents from Homeland Security Investigations showed up with search warrants at 2 student residences, and law enforcement sources tell ABC News they were looking for at least one woman who was not home at the time. Sources say these searches were all part of the Trump administration's crackdown on individuals described as sympathizing with